Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Rising. This is the Godot Community PLC neighborhood for elementary art teachers. That is the elementary visual arts. I want to welcome you guys back. If this is your first time visiting, we're glad you're here. Hope you find it useful. And for those of you who are returning, thanks for coming back. What we're going to do today is continue with part 3 of webinar 6, refreshing our winter practice. And I'm going to share with you guys some ways that you can bring art to your staff members and share the joy of art with that. I'm going to go ahead and jump into this presentation. Again, winter revisits to refresh your practice, sharing the joy of art with your staff. As the art teacher in your school, you are likely the person that everyone comes to for ideas. So why not be the person that sparks the joy of art with your staff or conducts workshops to do those things? Now, I know we're all busy. We have a huge workload. So I'm not saying to add this one more thing, but if this is something you're passionate about, it can be a really great way to connect with your staff members. What I'm going to share with you in this presentation are some ideas that maybe you can start small and take away and, again, share the joy of art with your staff. I've got 3 parts in this episode. We're going to talk about beginning with a plan. We're going to look at your audience, and then I'm going to share with you some ideas just to kind of get things going for you. As always, begin with a plan. You want to, first of all, share your passion, share your art, promote team building within the school. The reason this is important, I believe, is that you can lead the group to help them find meaning and enjoyment in the art making process in a variety of ways. And it's also a great opportunity for teachers to learn more about your school's art program and experience what goes on in your classroom. And I think they would really appreciate what you do when they get to experience it firsthand. As I said, you want to start with a plan. And before you go ahead and build this plan, maybe speak to your administration to get approval. Have a skeleton plan down, and then together talk about the group size. Are you doing a school-wide activity, or do you want to start with small group workshops? Will admin cover the costs of this program, or do you need your staff to pay a fee to cover the supplies? The next thing that you have to think about are the activities that you want to teach and the time you need for prep, the classroom space, and the materials you have available. You guys, this is a large commitment and you don't want to work alone. Build your workshop team so you don't have to do everything by yourself. I learned that the hard way. Now, you want to discover your audience. You've got your plan, you've talked to admin. So find out who's willing to take part in these workshops. You could send out an email or create a survey to kind of discern the areas of interest. Include information like potential costs, dates, and proposed activities. It's also a good idea to ask everyone to suggest what activities interest them. And you can also check if anyone is willing to lead a workshop in their area of expertise. You'd be surprised to find out how many closet artists you've got in your school. The next thing you want to look at is your audience. And what I mean by this is you should have a good idea about your group options. So next you need to decide which activities are best suited for small group and for larger staff-wide workshops. You also want to consider if you're comfortable teaching to an entire staff and if you have the team to help you prep and lead the workshop. It is no fun when you commit to something that you dread doing. So make sure you've got all of that ready to go before you offer it out there to your staff. After you've built your workshop plans, you're going to decide on the group sizes. The work you do is going to be dictated by the size and the meeting frequencies. So, for example, if you're doing a large school-wide one-day activity, that's going to be very different than what you do with a small group workshop that may meet on a regular schedule. You'll need to plan your projects based on the responses of your staff and the needs of your staff. Now, as far as activities, What I'm going to share with you next are some ideas that you could use in your school. I've divided up the lessons by whether they are school-wide or small group applications, whether they're low cost or high cost, along with the prep work, whether this is a low prep activity or a high prep. So check these out to see if they work with your needs, and you can always tweak them to make them work in your group. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, this is a low prep, low cost activity. And if you haven't heard of neurographic art, we've really been doing some of this with our students for early finishers. And this is not my original idea. I got it from Amsler School, and I've got the link on here. When you go back, you can use the link when you open the PowerPoint presentation to see more. These are student examples from middle school, and you can see how the project starts. And on the next page, this is a worksheet that I give the kids, and it would work really well for your staff. I'm proposing this for we're actually doing an artist workshop, but I'm also proposing it for a staff-wide activity. So you can see here where simply you're just making a continuous line for a few minutes and then rounding out the corners. I turned this into a worksheet so that people have a reference to look at when they're making this. And then after that's all done, you're going to use the Sharpie to fill in the lines and round out the corners. You can either fill in the spaces with patterns first, then you can add color on the top, you can use paint, you can use watercolor pencils. So many opportunities and so many ways to make this a continuous activity for your groups. And again, low cost, low prep. We did this a few years ago. That's why I put that in here. Now in the image, they're showing that this is the polymer clay, but I did this project with air dry clay. So it is a high prep project. I call it low cost because we used air dry clay. And like I said, I did it for the whole school. And we just passed out these worksheets. We divided up the clay, gave a bag of clay and a worksheet to the participants. And then they simply worked through the steps to make a very simple bird. Now you could use cut out pieces of wood here, or I also used a piece of pretty thick gauge wire, bent it into a V, and then inserted it as the bird legs. After a time, these birds dried, and then we set up the teacher workroom, and we set up paint brushes, instructions on cleaning the brushes, and some photographs of birds that they could use to inspire them for the painting. I thought this went over really, really well, and it was a pretty quick activity considering it was a whole staff activity. The next thing that we did, let me go back. The next thing that we did was personalized lanyards. This was another school activity, and this is a high prep, and we each teacher that wanted to make this had a cost that covered the cost of the beads and the materials. And what I did with my group is we purchased the beads. We have a teacher at our school who has a laser cutting business, and we did teachers' names on one side of the wooden discs and the logo on the other. I prepped out, and you can kind of see down here the instruction sheets. So everything was set out on the tables with the beads, with instructions on how to assemble it. And then for the teachers that couldn't make it, we simply bagged up the materials. They came back later and they picked out their beads and they created their lanyards. It was so much fun, and I still have people coming back to the little bead shop making their materials. If you haven't done gel printing, it is an excellent high interest project. I would consider, if you already have the gel plates, I would consider it a low cost yet high prep activity. If you don't have the gel plates, you can also use the carved foam plates, and let me show you. These are the plates. Hold on, let me grab one. where they use a piece of foam and carve into them, and you can use this as the carving activity. This has been on my radar for a small group activity in the spring, and I'll just have to come back and let you guys know how it turns out. But I've included here a video about the process. And I like this video because I love the way that this artist has set things out. I'm going to play just a small snippet of it for you. So she's got the jelly plate in the middle, and then she's taped out 3 different pieces of paper. So everything is lined up, and you'll see that she uses the brayer and puts the ink on the brayer, runs her stencils across, and then each person can pretty quickly create 3 stencils through this process. Zap it forward a little bit and show you the good parts. But you can see she creates these layers upon layers upon layers of work. So that's one on my radar. Unfortunately, I'm not very helpful in letting you know how this works out, but projects like this can be really satisfying for a small group. The last activity I have for you guys is sketchbooks and doing a sketchbook workshop. And I would consider this a low-cost, low-prep recurring activity for small groups. You could host sessions where participants get to learn and experiment with various mediums. And it's also an important process in building that habit of regularly working in our sketchbooks or journals. We all know how important that is. If you need to convince people why we should do this, I've included 2 articles. The first one is more focused on why artists keep a sketchbook, and the second one is more focusing on journaling. So instead of the writing component, making a visual journal and learning to use materials. This is another one of those spaces where you can bring in the expertise of your staff, and they can share experiences with mediums, and you guys can explore things together. Well, I hope that you found these starter ideas helpful, and that might inspire you to get out there and bring your school together and start working on art as a group. I know here at our school, we've got a strong core of people who love to do work like this. There's a group that does stuff monthly outside of school, and they meet at different people's houses and do these things. But it's so fun to be the catalyst and drive that interest and see if you can capture our staff members to also start enjoying the joy of art making. So if you are already doing work like this, would you mind letting us know how and what you're doing within your staff and within your community to share your expertise outside the classroom? Post your response in the discussion section, and remember to subscribe so that you can see all the things we are all doing out there. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you next month. Thanks for coming by. See ya.